Chapter 34. Why? While Verona, Lincoln, Lake, and Jack were trying to find their peace, Adam was heading to town. The car ride into town was easily 35 to 40 minutes long. For much of the trip, it was quiet, but eventually, Adam started asking questions. Why did Asur have to leave? Why couldn't he have just stayed and fought the Jinn like before? Nurin thought for a moment, considering the questions. She had already explained this the night before, but she realized that his reasons for asking the questions were deeper than logic or practicality. They were emotional. She knew that what her grandson really wanted to know was why Asur left his family, and specifically, why he left Adam's mother, Maha. Adam was currently facing the very real possibility of losing his parents, and he was realizing that his mother lost her father when she was even younger than he is now. And to make matters worse, she was never even told why she was forced to feel that kind of pain. Adam was angry. He was angry at both his grandmother and grandfather for what they did to his mother when she was just a little girl. Nurin carefully began to answer. We were chosen, and with that, we were handed a great responsibility and an even greater burden, which was to sacrifice our personal lives to assure the safety of all humankind. Our greatest regret was hurting our sweet little Maha, but I did my best to raise her and protect her from the difficult truths of our lives. I wanted her to have a normal childhood. I also tried my best to protect her from the horrors of this world, but I guess I messed that up too. I haven't seen her in over 10 years. I miss her so much. And now her voice trailed off, and Nurin stopped talking. Adam looked down at the last part, but soon looked up again because he wasn't satisfied. What if you were wrong? What if you could have tried harder to stay together? What if family and love are what you need to defeat the Jinn? How could you be sure? Then Adam very sarcastically asked, was Asur told to leave his family in some fantastic vision? Nurin didn't know how to respond. Then Adam asked, didn't my mother deserve her parents to fight for her? Nurin was thinking about what her grandson was saying when Adam continued, okay, fine. You say you had to do it. I wasn't there, so maybe I shouldn't question it, but how come he has never come back to see her after all these years? Nurin again thought. Then she took a deep breath. We had moved to the other side of the world centuries ago to hide the flame, so that the few Jinn left on this earth wouldn't be able to find it. It took 600 years, but the Jinn had somehow managed to find us. It was because of our selfishness. The Jinn were still very weak, but if they got a hold of the flame, they could have returned to full strength. We had to protect the flame. Asur is the keeper of the flame. He had to take it somewhere, far away from the north and the cold. He went south to where the weather was warmer. The flame would be hidden and harder to detect down there. Asur could not leave the flame. If Asur came back, he would have risked being followed by Sila, Jinn spies. He would have risked the fire burning out. He couldn't visit. Nurin paused. She took a couple of deeper breaths and started to tear up. She then confessed, but I was too weak. I visited him on a few occasions over the many years. The last time was just over a month ago. I fear that, again, my selfishness got him discovered and has endangered the world. Nurin collected himself and continued. We need to help Asur and your parents, but I can never return. I have already caused too much damage. My purpose on this earth was to protect it over all else, and not only have I failed, but I hurt the people I love the most in the process. It will always be one of my deepest regrets to pass this terrible burden to yet another generation of children. But it is the only way. I will help you train. I will help you find your inner gifts. But that is the extent of my ability. I'm afraid I'm not strong enough to be of any more help. You have the true power. It will now be up to you and the others to save the world. Adam could not imagine how he, a shy kid from Illinois, who had never accomplished anything, could be tasked with saving the world. After this, Adam and Nurin just sat in silence until they reached town. The town, if you want to call it a town, was tiny. It only had maybe 10 buildings. Nurin parked the car on the street, where 4 other cars were already parked. They got out of the station wagon and entered the first building. It was the second largest building Adam saw. The largest building was a beautiful wood structure, painted entirely white, and donned a sign out front on an immaculate lawn that read, Vicar Lutheran Church at Mountain. Inside the building, Adam and Nurin entered. There was a small post office, manned by one older gentleman who was not wearing a postal worker's uniform. Instead, he was wearing a red and black button-down flannel shirt, covered by a clashing, puffy, orange coat with no sleeves. And instead of an official post office hat, he was sporting a camouflage baseball cap with a picture of a semi-truck on it and the words, Keep truckin'. As soon as the two walked in, the man said, Well, hello there, Nurin. I wasn't expecting you till tomorrow. How you doing? Nurin replied, Doing well, Vernon. How are you? Staying out of trouble, I hope? Vernon just smiled and then said, Well, you're a day early, but I got your mail. He stood up from his chair and turned around to gather Nurin's mail. Within seconds, he handed her a few letters that looked like bills and a couple of catalogs. Then he asked, Who's your friend? Nurin introduced Adam. This handsome young man is my grandson, Adam. He and my granddaughter are visiting from down south. Nurin then thanked him for her mail and told him that she would see him at her usual time next week. The other half of the building was a small store, complete with various grocery items, toiletries, and other essentials on one side, and clothes and shoes on the other. They walked through the narrow aisles to the back, where there was a payphone on the wall. Adam gave his grandmother the information she needed to locate the phone number for the hospital. They did not have a computer, so they called the operator, and a minute later, Nurin was pouring quarters into the relic and dialing the number she was given. As the phone rang, not knowing what they were going to learn about the condition of Adam's parents, both Nurin and Adam suddenly felt sick to their stomachs. Someone answered on the other end, and Nurin started talking. She held while she was being transferred. A nurse answered, and Nurin told her she was Mahaworthy's mother, and she wanted to know the condition of her daughter and son-in-law. Adam could only hear one side of the conversation. So, during the call, all he could do to try and figure out what was happening was to read his grandmother's body language. Nurin rattled off birth dates and other identifying information. The person on the other end must have been satisfied, because Nurin became quiet for what seemed like an eternity. Then Nurin thanked the nurse and hung up the phone. She looked at Adam and simply said, They're still in comas. There hasn't been any improvement since the accident." Adam let out a large sigh and fell into her arms. All he heard was that they were still alive, and therefore, he thought, there is still hope. Nurin held her grandson tight. She was also relieved that Maha and Darren were still alive, but additionally, Adam had been very upset, and particularly upset with her during the car ride, and Nurin wanted to console him as well as form a connection with him. On their way out, Nurin picked up some snacks, ingredients for a special meal she was planning, 5 journals, and some other groceries for her young visitors. She then grabbed a variety of t-shirts and shorts for the kids, and a new pair of tennis shoes and socks for Jack. She paid and headed to the post office towards the exit. Nurin told Vernon as they walked out the door, "Say hello to Shirley for me." Vernon tipped his camouflage cap and nodded. Nurin filled her gas tank just outside the adjacent building, which had a small diner with one gas pump out front. After she filled the tank, she asked Adam if he wanted to drive, explaining that the kids would need to get back home somehow, and he was the only one physically tall enough to drive the large station wagon. Adam gave Nurin an "Are you crazy?" look, but then eventually agreed and sat in the driver's seat. Adam relented, saying, "Fine, but it is unnecessary because you will be coming with us." Nurin nodded, smiled, and handed him the keys. When he was ready, she gave him a crash course, no pun intended, and off they went. Navigating the country roads was terrifying, but Adam must have been a fast learner because, after about 15 minutes, he seemed to have gotten the hang of it. Nurin let him drive for another 10 minutes before suggesting she take over so he could get started on his meditation. He had some work to do, after all. Adam pulled over onto the dirt shoulder and switched places with the Moon Woman. During the remaining 20-minute ride home, Nurin told Adam to close his eyes and think of something happy. Adam thought he might think about Lake, or his parents, or a birthday, or the vacation they once took to the beach and the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida. Instead, as soon as he closed his eyes, he was surprised to learn that all he could picture was Verona and their time together so far. Adam got lost in replaying their adventure, and when he opened his eyes again, it was pouring rain outside. Adam looked over at his grandmother. She was driving up her driveway when she finally parked the car and turned off the ignition. Adam noticed that she winced and closed her eyes for a few seconds. She looked to be in some discomfort. Then she softly announced, "We're here." Adam asked if she was okay, but Nurin just brushed it off and made a joke, saying, "I'm fine. It's just normal old people stuff. After all, I'm almost 700 years young." She gave her grandson a wink and then turned to open the car door. When they got out of the car, Adam wanted to run up to the house to get out of the rain, but he was concerned for his grandmother. So he hung back with her and held her arm to make sure she made it up the driveway safely and to the house okay. Upon entering, they were immediately greeted by Verona, who seemed to be in great spirits and eager to continue the process of discovering her gifts. Although Adam was still concerned for his grandmother, he felt like he also had a good meditation. However, they seemed to be the only two who were feeling good. Jack and Lake were very upset and frustrated. They had not found any peace, and in fact, they both felt even worse than before. And well, Lincoln was as quiet as usual. He just sat on the couch, listening to his music and softly humming to himself. There were still many hours left in the day. So, Nurin gathered them and gave the children more tasks of concentration to do. That evening, Nurin handed out journals, instructing, "I want each of you to keep a journal over the next few days. Find a private place to write down your thoughts, worries, concerns, fears, discoveries, successes, and failures. This can be an important part of finding your path to true peace."